Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School podcast. The last podcast that we're going to do for a long time, in which we don't talk about any games, which is really exciting. I'm so excited about that. It's been such a long time coming. Jeremy Cohen, hello, sir. Are you excited to watch basketball?
Of course. I'm absolutely excited to watch basketball. Are you excited to watch basketball, John?
Can I tell you? I was like a giddy little school child when I woke up at 6 a.m. What night? What was it? Friday? Whatever the first Warriors-Wizards game was. And I turn on my NBA TV, and I'm sitting there with my coffee, just watching Kristaps clank three after three. It was glorious. And now for the Knicks to be able to do the same thing, I guess tomorrow, by the time people are hearing this, yeah. No, I'm really excited.
Three after three after three.
Hopefully they will not be clanking as many threes as Kristaps was.
Once a Knick, always a Knick. Sure.
Can we have that not apply to him?
I think there are several players where I would rather not have to consider them a Knick. So I
dislike former Knicks more than Kristaps, but for some reason he's the one. If like you'd ask me, pick one Knick for whom that label will not apply, I think I would pick Kristaps.
Really? Okay. If we have to go with one player, mine is Enes Kanter.
You're stealing my answer.
Well, that's not his name.
Sorry, you're correct. Enes Freedom. Excuse me.
I forgot actually.
Yeah, I also forgot. Yeah.
That's too bad. Ian is where we are. Hope you're doing fabulously. So we got basketball coming up. That's really cool. We are going to talk this episode through a fun little gimmick that our producer extraordinaire Andrew Claudio has put together. Going to talk about some of the things that we've heard this week, but we're going to do it in a more fun and creative way than just kind of going through the different quotes. But first, we got a little news that broke about an hour ago before we stepped in front of the microphones here. And that is one of RJ Barrett's contemporaries, perhaps the player, for some reason, I don't know really why this is. Maybe you have a better answer than I do, that he's been compared to more from his draft class than any other. You'd think it would have been Garland, right? Because Garland was ostensibly the guy the Knicks passed up to take Barrett. But anyway, he's always seems to be compared with Tyler Herro, who just signed a contract extension similar to Barrett's, a little higher than Barrett's, as it were. 4 years, $130 million, 120 of which is guaranteed. So total contract figure, $10 million above RJ, $13 million more in guaranteed money than RJ. I'll just say I think it's a fine deal. With Herro, you're getting shot creation. You're getting, I don't know about elite shooting, but you're getting really good shooting, getting tough shooting. And you're getting a guy who can he defend at a high enough level to justify playing, 35 minutes a night for a contending team? Are you getting playmaking to the point where you can get away with like putting him as like not a nominal point guard, but like he's your worst defender on the floor. And like you have to solve, like there are issues with Tyler Herro, just like there are issues with RJ Barrett. And for those reasons, he did not get a max contract, just like RJ Barrett didn't get a max contract. I thought the deal was fine. What did you think about the deal?
Well, I don't feel like I can say, hey, I understand why the Knicks would max RJ Barrett because of how the salary cap is going to work, and then turn around and completely laugh at Tyler Herro for making that much money. So am I glad that the Knicks...
Was that your inclination?
Well, again, I still don't love this deal for Tyler Herro. To answer your question...
Hold on. For Tyler Herro or for the Heat?
Well, the Heat have a habit of doing this. And I mean, in the last two off seasons, Pat Riley is just very good at paying white men a lot of money, maybe who don't necessarily need to have that much money, but he does it.
You're referring to the most underpaid man in the National Basketball Association.
I am referring to Duncan Robinson. Yes. Sorry.
How dare you?
Sorry, John. But again, it's the sort of thing where like Pat Riley is a great basketball mind, but he's done this before where he has overpaid role players because the Heat find incredible role players making nothing. And then it comes time for them to pay the piper and they just give them these large deals. And the thing is, it worked for them last time. Would it have worked if Jimmy Butler didn't want to come to Miami, though? That is a very different discussion. I don't think it would have. I think they would have just had these contracts rolling off the books. They would have had cap space, but they wouldn't really have had much other than Bam and Herro. But I don't hate the deal for Herro because I know over time it'll be fine. I hate it in the interim. I think it's really, if you're paying a sixth man that much money, then it's a problem. If he can push himself forward to being a starter, then I get it. So I'd say like the way I thought about it was, all right, if you're going to max RJ, you're at least maxing a starter. You don't have to love RJ Barrett, but there's some sort of logic with at least maxing a starter. This is not a max contract for Tyler Herro, but it's a lot of money for someone who's coming off the bench. So if he's not coming off the bench, I get it more. I think it's fine in the long run, but it's a lot of money. I'm really glad the Knicks aren't the ones paying him. And I'll say this, the reason I believe there's the comparison between RJ and Herro is because Zion went number one because he's Zion. John Morant has been phenomenal. He went number two. And I think a lot of the discussion was, well, if you did a redraft, who's the player who would go after John Morant? And for a lot of Heat fans, when this is the product of being a player on a good team, like if your Herro is a good scorer, all the things you mentioned, 100%. The benefit was that he played for a team that went to the NBA Finals, and you are perceived as higher in value when you play for a really good team. And as a result, I think that was a huge impact for him. And that's why comparisons started with RJ's inefficient and Tyler Herro is contributing, winning basketball for a winning team. Even if he's doing it in a different capacity, there was still that mindset that was then factored into it. I don't necessarily agree with it. And by necessarily, I mean, I don't agree with it. I would rather have RJ, especially on this contract, but I can't hate the Heat for this move. But I think there's going to be like a year or two where if he's coming off the bench before the new TV deal kicks in and he's on that $30 or so million per year salary, that's a very large pill to swallow. So I'm a little surprised they didn't I'm surprised they didn't wait. And yet at the same time, I get why they didn't, because he's movable starting 2020. I mean, he can move now, but with the poison pill stipulation, it's harder to do. So from Miami's perspective, it's probably, we would rather just sign you to this now, and we can always try to flip you next summer versus a sign and trade or a restriction because, hey, we didn't extend you ahead of time. So I get it. I'm glad the Knicks are not the ones paying Tyler Herro.
I think it's a fascinating discussion between him and RJ, because in Tyler, and I hate to be put in the position of having to defend Tyler Herro, I do not care for Tyler Herro for a number of reasons. I don't like the cut of his jib, Jeremy. Tyler Herro is an efficient shot creator on decent volume. He was some obscene percentile for usage last year. I'll look it up in a second. Yeah, 94th percentile for usage in 32 minutes a night. So that's pretty darn good. And efficiency, 65th percentile, again via cleaning the glass. A lot of unassisted looks both behind the arc and like elsewhere. Like he does all the things right that you look for in a quote unquote shot creator. But he's small, and he's not enough of a playmaker, and he's not a good defender. So it's like there's this ceiling there, right? Of a shot creation ceiling, which is the most sought after skill in the NBA today. But as you correctly alluded to, there is this question of like, all right, well, what role is he playing on a contending team? And is it always just going to be a six man, which I think is a very, very fair question. I think the Zach Lowe article from over the summer talking about, I think Zach called him the most divisive player in the sport in terms of people's valuations and judgments on him. Whereas in RJ, I think there is a consensus that the ceiling, specifically as a shot creator, may not be as high, but there is this kind of other side to RJ where it's like we've seen him be a really, really good role player, not last season, but the season before that. And now as we're entering this Knicks season in which we got, Tibbs is up there talking every day about how we have more talent, we have a lot more options and all these great things. It's made me think about like, well, the nice thing about RJ is that we know there is this default, this fallback of like, okay, even if he's just knocking down, catch and shoot threes and defending the opposing team's best wing on the other end of the court, like, is that what most Knicks fans want to see from RJ Barrett? Of course not. It's not what I want to see. It's not what you want to see. It's not what the Knicks want to see. But like, as a baseline, with the current NBA economics, that's worth $25 million a year. And you're always going to have teams that are going to want that guy. So yeah, I don't know if I have a point. I just like, it's an interesting dichotomy between these two players. That's all. We could probably just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's fair.
All right. There were some other contracts signed, which I guess we should mention briefly. The Steven Adams extension getting $12 million a year, right? For 2 years on top of his the remaining year on his contract, as well as Larry Nance Jr. I think he's at about 10 a year for again 2 more years. I don't know. I bring it up because I figured you might want to say something about it. I just kind of looked at them. I'm like, okay, those are both pretty good deals as well, and it shows the value of big men in the game today who can do some interesting things that help a team, but also are not the kind of like, they're not in the class of like bigs that get really, well paid. And, Mitch is making more than both of these guys, obviously. Mitch offers elite rim protection. Neither of those guys do. They do other things that Mitch does not. I don't know. Anything worth saying or not really?
Well, Mitch is 20.
Mitch is younger. Yes.
23, no, 24. And Adams and Nance are both around 30.
Yep.
So I think with Nance, at least it makes sense because he is Zion insurance and they can also flip him, in a year. They don't have to worry about same thing with, as I mentioned, with Tyler Herro. And with Adams, it feels much more like a culture fit than anything, which if that works for them, that's fine. They are in a position where, again, they're not a free agent destination, probably not going to have much cap space, especially when the John Morant contract kicks in. So I don't hate it for them. It's more just, 2 teams that seem to be over the cap, bringing back Big Ben. That's fine. No problem with it.
I, like you, I'm always thinking about potential Mitch trades down the line. And I always, I just wonder how tradable, how appealing will his deal be on the marketplace should such conversations come to pass. But those will be conversations for another day. Because right now, Andrew Claudio, do you have some like intro music for this?
I don't, but
you should get
in
some.
Post I might. So maybe this whole part will get cut because intro music will be playing. Otherwise, you heard me and John discuss whether or not there would be intro music playing to a brand new segment that I came up with, because I don't know about you two, but I know about our commenters and people that leave reviews and respond to tweets that we post. They're ready to talk about basketball. And I think you guys are ready to talk about basketball. So I've come up with something called Claudio Casino, in which totally not self-indulgent that I named a casino after myself, by the way.
Complimentary cocktails at this casino?
No. Sponsored by Pastor Claudio's Obi Hive. So everything is non-alcoholic at this casino.
It's good that I brought my own booze.
Don't worry. I won't tell anybody. So I decided to set my own betting lines for certain prop bets that you can take, some futures bets for this upcoming season. And based off of the quotes that we heard this week, by the way, isn't it hilarious? We decided to wait a day till after content day or the night of content day because maybe something interesting would get said, and nothing interesting was said. And then Tibbs started giving every day a press conference that lit Twitter on fire after we all recorded the day after. Anyway, so I've come up with several different prop lines that I created based off of some research and what I personally would just think was the best number to give it. And you guys will discuss whether the over or the under is more likely this season. So we start with, I got to do it, John. Jeremy, so you missed our town hall the other night. And with the patrons, they got to hear a gentleman's wager that John and I made. And with Tibbs saying what he said, unless he's not going to be the coach the entire year, there'll be a prop on that. Don't you worry. The first one, how many minutes will Obi Toppin and Julius Randle play together this season? The over-under I set is 100.5 0.5 minutes. So if you're taking the over, it's at least 101. If you're taking the under, it's 100 or under. John and I made a gentleman's wager. I say a under. John took the over. Winner, loser buys the winner a drink.
And we should say last year it slightly went over this number.
What was the number? 105? Wasn't it?
I'll look it up right now, but it was less than 110, but more than 100. I'll look it up.
So Jeremy,
I am going with. I'm going to go with the under. But here's the thing. I get what he's saying in terms of how when you remove garbage time, this is what the net rating looks like and why they don't like it. The only thing I'm thinking is that if Obi is taking another step forward in his NBA career, does that force his hand at any point? But it goes back to the simple truth of Tibbs likes 48 minutes of rim protection. And if he's not going to get that from Obi Toppin, and if he's not going to get that from Julius Randle, then they're not going to see the floor very much together. So I'm going to stick with the under, hoping it's over, but believing it's just less than that.
John.
I went over because I'm just a glutton for punishment.
Because you believe in the over. Yes.
What is the Mets quote? I want to, no, that's the X-Files quote.
Who? What do you mean? What did you?
I confused briefly. You gotta believe with I want to believe, which is the X-Files quote.
I want to believe is the X-Files. What's you got? Who are you talking about?
You know what? It's something I heard one time. Forget about it. It's not important.
Is that a sports thing? I have no idea who you're. The Mets? Who is that? Did I say that right?
Is this? Maybe I missed the memo. I guess the season is already over.
What season? Is that what sport are you referring to? I have no idea. Is this baseball? I saw during college football they would cut in with that tall guy on the team with the stripes, because he's like hit like a bunch of home runs. But I haven't followed baseball in years, John. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think you're missing much from what I've been able to glean the last few days.
Well, good.
Would it be funny if the Mets won tonight? Anyway,
who are the Mets?
We don't know. We're going to find out soon enough. Toppin and Randle played 101 minutes, by the way. So they literally.
That's why I set the line. I remember now. That's why I set the line at that.
I think there will be enough games. I think there will be a lot of games where we don't see it at all based on Tibbs' quotes. I think we could be sure of that. And then I think that there are going to be games where we see it for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. Based on maybe injuries, although Sims' presence as a breaking case of emergency third string center who we know can play at the NBA level would tend to go against that. I think Tibbs threw a little cold water on this because he wants to get out ahead of this being a thing, because he knows, and you could tell, and this is like my more general take on a lot of the early quotes, which were very inflammatory. I think that was purposeful. And I think Tibbs wanted to take as many arrows, slings and arrows. What are slings? You hear that it's slings and arrows.
Shot.
Oh yeah, there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Never put two and two together. Good job, Jeremy. He wanted to take as many slings and arrows up front, before the preseason games even began, and just kind of let the air out of that balloon a little bit. Will it work? Well, no, not if they don't win games. If they do win games, we'll see. But like you said, he loves his rim protection, and he's had defenses that have finished 4th and 11th in the league through 2 years. And his philosophy is, I'm going to get you a top 10 defense and probably a top 5 defense if I get players on the court that I want, i.e. not Kemba Walker. And no, potential experimentation with these two players together is going to make it worth me sacrificing that for, which is why I take the over with trepidation. But look, there's garbage time. There is the possibility that Tibbs is not the coach all year. And like there is a slim possibility that the season kind of does not go the way the Knicks want. I think there's enough reasons out there for me to take the over. In addition to the fact that like Tibbs could see improvement in Obi Toppin as a potential rim protector in his estimation. I think we believe in him as a rim protector. I don't know if Tibbs does yet, to the point that he'd be willing to try it out more. I take the over with not much confidence. That's all I'll say.
It won't be an expensive drink. Don't worry, John.
Great.
Next up, and this seemed to be probably, in my opinion, the more disappointing one, although with Grimes' injury, maybe that's more what he was referring to. So the next line, how many games will Quentin Grimes start this season? I put the over-under line at 25.5. Now, Tibbs came out and said that he didn't even say Evan Fournier is the front runner. He said a quote about how the Knicks are going to need shooting, which you could get from Fournier, but you could also get from Grimes. And then the follow-up, I believe from Fred Katz, was, so you would say that Fournier is the front runner to be the starting shooting guard this season? And Tibbs said, yes, I would.
And then there were some additional questions asked during Saturday's presser, again in reference to Grimes and Fournier and like what Grimes would need to do. Is it that Fournier is ahead and Grimes needs to catch up? And the question was from Zach Braziller of the Post, and Tibbs quickly pivoted into what Tibbs likes to pivot into, which is like, everybody's going to be important. It's a group effort. And, I'm not nearly as concerned with who starts as you guys are. And he threw in, I think, a carrot for everybody, which is that the young guys are going to have very important roles on this team, which is his way of saying they may not play as many minutes as you want to, but the minutes they're going to play are going to be valuable and they're going to be playing important minutes. I would have gone over on this a week ago. After hearing what Tibbs had to say. And the interesting thing about 25.5, let's just say for argument's sake, they trade Fournier at the last possible moment before the trade deadline. I think it's like real close. If like Grimes starts like all the games after a theoretical Fournier trade. So
you don't think they'd trade for a person that would take the spot of Fournier in the starting rotation? I think they'd dump him.
If they traded Evan Fournier before this trade deadline, my assumption would be it would be to open up time for a younger player to take that spot and to move off of Fournier's contract. That would be my assumption. Okay. I could be wrong.
Jeremy?
I'm going to go with over. I don't feel great about it, but I'm going to do it. Again, I think that we saw Tibbs do some tinkering even last year, right? Where there's a point in which Mitchell Robinson was coming off of the bench. He just did not look in shape, and Nerlens Noel filled in at that point. I'm trying to think who, a little bit of shuffling, obviously, with Kemba and Alec Burks. He tinkers a lot. And I think that, yes, I agree, John, that even if Fournier were traded at the deadline and Grimes were inserted there, that there might be enough games in the season before that, whether it's Tibbs just trying out combinations or something happening to Fournier, or, is RJ, for example, is he missing time? And maybe Cam isn't the one who starts. Maybe they shift up and they put Grimes in the starting 2 guard and Fournier is starting 3. I don't know. There are a lot of different combinations, but I feel like Tibbs he has the capacity to do enough to get him starts early on, where if Fournier is traded for, again, like you're saying, let's say it's bad expiring salary. And the whole point is like, well, Fournier is a capable player and you're taking the extra year, but you're at least getting something of value out of someone who is just, maybe they're injured, maybe they're just useless, whatever it might be. Then putting Grimes in, I think he might be able to eclipse that. But again, if you look at Jimmy Butler, based on how Tibbs kind of deployed him over his first 4 years, second year, he was getting a healthy amount of rotation minutes. And then he started some, but not a ton of games. And then year 3, he was a consistent starter. So this is definitely going to be what feels like the in-between year for Grimes, where he's sort of on the bench, but then able to start in games that are important and do his thing. But I don't see it being that much more than 25.5, but I feel confident with the over.
I like it.
I think I would take the under, but I'm not. It goes more to my larger thoughts about this season, though.
Yeah, read the next question, because I have a larger point that I want to make that I think links these two together.
So the next question, how many games will Immanuel Quickley start this season? The over-under line I set is 3.5. He has started 6 games in 2 seasons, 3 in each of the first 2. I'm saying he gets to a 4th game this year.
I'm just going to say I will admit this, as should shock no one who's been following me for a while. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on this year. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on the Knicks this year. I think this group is going to be good. And I'm sure that'll come up again for some other questions. But it's part of why I would go under on Grimes. Because it's, again, there's like, if all goes according to plan, way this year could go. And then there's, if things do not go according to plan, way that this season could go. I think if the season goes according to plan, Tibbs is going to be able to maintain his second unit throughout, and he's going to deploy guys in the way that he wants to deploy them. And while I certainly, as do both of you, have some questions about whether he would really like to start Quentin Grimes, I think that's a much closer thing, which is why the 25.5 I think is the correct number. We have more than enough evidence to know that Immanuel Quickley is viewed by at least this head coach and potentially this entire organization as a guy who comes off the bench. And Tibbs made that clear when he said, when he was talking about the point guard depth of this club, he mentioned Jalen Brunson and he mentioned Derrick Rose and he mentioned Deuce McBride. He did not mention Immanuel Quickley. He sees Immanuel Quickley not as a lead ball handler, much to the dismay of many people. That said, I think it's his way of complimenting him in that, like, he's the spark plug off the bench, 6-man type of guy. And I think 3.5 is a good number. I'll take the under. And last thing I'll say on Quickley, I wonder if there isn't a part of him looking at this extension that Tyler Herro just got and saying, man, what could I do? What could I make with 32.5 minutes a night as a guy entering my 4th year of my rookie contract next summer? But I digress.
Jeremy.
Where I struggle is that Jalen Brunson over his last 2 seasons has missed 7 regular season games.
Yeah.
So there's the argument that Derrick Rose isn't going to be relied upon in a way that we know, which I think is valid. You know, I think if you get Derrick Rose for 50 to 60 games, then you're in good shape. With that said, him slimming down, I do wonder how that impacts his ability to stay healthy if he's carrying less weight. So it's like, all right, well, you're taking Brunson's ability to thus far stay healthy and Rose's track record. Are there enough games that Rose and Brunson will miss together where wouldn't be elevated? I'm going to take the over on this one. And the reason I'm going to take the over is because I don't foresee Tibbs elevating Rose in the event that Brunson's hurt. I think he's going to keep Rose in that position off the bench, just doing a great job with the second unit and possibly closing at the end of games too. But if we're talking about, is Brunson going to miss 4 games this season? That's not a sure thing because of his track record. Other than, like, of his last 4 seasons, there's really been one where he missed time, and he didn't wind up missing that much, partially due to the fact that COVID impacted the season, and what would have been him missing a lot of games turned into him missing some, but not as many. But there are enough injuries and illnesses that can go around where I do think Jalen Brunson misses 4 games. I don't necessarily think Rose is elevated to the starting lineup, and I don't know who else would really take that spot. So I'm going to go with Immanuel Quickley.
I completely agree with all of that logic, and I would wager you a donut that in games that Brunson misses, Deuce McBride starts just to keep Rose coming off the bench.
It's interesting you say that, though, because it sounded like what Tibbs was saying was our point guards, where he, right? Am I making this up?
Yeah,
no, he's very clear about, like,
Brunson,
Rose, and Deuce.
Deuce, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he likes, exactly like you said, I think he likes Rose coming off the bench. The only difference between us is, I think, instead of Quickley starting at point guard, I think Deuce gets those starts.
Totally fair. I think it really depends on how Quick is playing. If Quick is doing well versus Deuce not even having a role on the team, then I could see IQ being elevated and Deuce not being. But I get it. Yeah. If he doesn't see IQ in that way, then He's not going to do it. It just boggles my mind how he could still then, defend Alec Burks being in that position. And then if IQ's playing well, not giving him the opportunity.
We had this conversation last year, and we've had it with Benji about how he views that second unit, I think, as sacrosanct, as the true strength of his team. And if they are continuing to play competitive games, I think he will continue to believe that second unit is the best strength that I have, and I'm not going to disrupt that by taking a guy off it. That's just my guess.
So people on YouTube will see that I've had a look for the past maybe 2 minutes or so, just of confusion.
Why?
So when Elfrid Payton got hurt, his that magical we hear season, and when he got benched in the playoffs, Derrick Rose started. Last year when Kemba Walker initially not got benched, they benched him for Alec Burks, but like Derrick Rose started 4 games last season. Why wouldn't he go to Derrick Rose?
Because with Elfrid, it was very much this is crucial. We have to do this or else we're really screwed.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest reason. With last year, I think it was just very much that he.
But I guess my question is, if it's not a significant injury to Brunson, which, as you mentioned, it's been 7 games that he's missed over the last, how many seasons?
2.
Over the last 2 seasons. So we're talking like a day off here or there because of a tweak. Like we're projecting like he will have a couple of games that he will miss. Why wouldn't he go to Derrick Rose and then
because what I'm saying,
back a point guard?
What I'm saying is that if you're assuming Derrick Rose is playing 50 to 60 games a year, that leaves 22 to 32 games that he would not be playing.
So you're saying it's not about where neither of them are available,
right? I'm saying that there's a higher likelihood that Derrick Rose is missing time than there is Jalen Brunson.
Okay,
but if Jalen Brunson's missing time, there is a decent chance that as he's missing time, Derrick Rose is as well. I'm not saying that he will be. It's just if you look at how often Rose has been hurt or has not been healthy enough to play or has not been available to play. If you combine that with a couple games here and there, like again, if the number is 4 for Quickley, then we're just talking about 4 games.
So yeah. It's only 2 games, but a big factor in my saying everything that I just said is in the 2 games that Deuce McBride started last year, Immanuel Quickley was active for both of them. And that was December 31st and January 2nd. And more importantly than that, there has never been a situation in the history of basketball more ripe for a team that was intrigued by the point guard upside of a young player to insert said young player into the starting lineup as there was for the Knicks last year with Immanuel Quickley over the last, whatever you want to say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however you want to go back. It took them until the last weekend because they literally ran out of bodies. Probably and they were officially eliminated at that point because it was like, and at that point, it's probably like, why not? Let's do a favor to the kid and his agent.
It has to get to the point where he's playing well enough and Tibbs can look past reasons for why he does not want Immanuel Quickley to be there for him to hit the 4 mark.
Maybe. The calculation I didn't make was that you were saying if Brunson misses time, it's more likely that Derrick Rose is not there. So
correct.
Then, okay. I would take, again, 3.5 is the line. So the under means he's just not, it's status quo. It's another 3-start season. I'll take the over just because it's it should be a very easy number to hit. Although if things go well for the Knicks this year, maybe Immanuel Quickley is part of a different awards voting for
me, the most interesting thing about Quickley is in regards to his role and how important he's viewed on this team has to do with, and yet you don't have an over under for this, but like how many minutes a game in an average game, assuming everybody's healthy and nobody's resting, do Derrick Rose and Jalen Brunson play together? Because I think everybody right now has their minutes per game predictions or prognostications, what they would like to see. And pretty much all those have Derrick Rose at like a certain number of minutes that is based on how many minutes Jalen Brunson is playing. And I don't think people are accounting right now for the fact that Tibbs may want to trot those 2 guys out there together on occasion.
So, It's funny you mentioned that, John, because here at Claudio Casino, we might just surprise you with a live bet out of nowhere. I actually do have, over the last 2 seasons, Immanuel Quickley, his rookie year, played at least 20 minutes 32 times. And then last season played at least 20 minutes 53 times. The over-under line I'm setting for Immanuel Quickley to play at least 20 minutes in a game this season is 61 times.
I'm taking the over.
61 and a half.
Over.
So he's going to play more than 20 minutes, 62
at least 62 games this season.
John?
I said over. John said over.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
over.
Cool.
So you're both taking the over, or you're not? You haven't answered yet.
I have not answered yet. I want to believe. I want to say I'm taking the over.
There's that word again. Jeez.
I just...
It's Ted Lasso. Believe. That's what you guys are talking about.
Sure. All right.
Okay.
Because I want to manifest it, I'll say over.
Okay. I will also take the over. I also have high predictions for Immanuel Quickley, so we'll see. Next up, I hate to say it, but I feel like this is a get it out the way, although we'll see if this Quentin Grimes injury is a thing. But how many games will Cam Reddish play more than 10 minutes in this season? The line is 24 and a half, over or under.
To me, you're basically saying how many games will Cam Reddish see more than garbage time?
Yes.
Because if a player is in Tibbs' rotation, with some exceptions, hello, Obi Toppin, 8.5 minutes or whatever. There were a handful of those over the last couple of years, maybe more than a handful. I'm probably downplaying it. I'm sure somebody out there is like, actually, it was 37 times where Obi didn't play 10 minutes.
There may be a surprise line coming, John.
Whatever. Other than Obi, rotation players for Tibbs, they get 10 minutes. Do I think he's going to see 25 games non-garbage time?
So I will just add, I said games. Did not say games for the Knicks.
Then I'll take the over then.
The over. So then Cam's on a different team. If I add that wrinkle, Cam's on a different team, you take the over. Jeremy, if I add that wrinkle and Cam's on a different team, what do you take?
I'm taking the over. But I took it as a Knick, and so, I thought John was going to say, well, how many games are between the start of the season and the trade deadline, and then to go from there. And I think the biggest thing, yes, there is a logjam, and Cam, from the outside looking in, seems to be on the outside looking in. But the other issue that comes with Cam Reddish, it's not about quote unquote potential, it's injury. He's had injuries that have very much derailed his ability to be a consistent player.
Tibbs said it Saturday.
Right.
He mentioned that he was nicked up or had bumps and bruises or some such thing.
Right. So the hope in that he does this isn't just that he gets into the rotation. It's that he himself stays healthy enough to be in the rotation. And as a Knick, I would probably go under just because it's hard. It's difficult to break through and to stay healthy if you're a player who is not starting in the rotation or, even in the second unit. And if you deal with bumps and bruises along the way historically. So I'll go over for the whole season. I guess I'd go under if it were the actual Knicks.
Can I ask you a question?
He's not traded. Yeah.
So you would agree, non-center injury, that Cam Reddish right now is the 11th man?
That's without question.
Right. So I was just making sure that we all agree he wouldn't go to Deuce over Cam in a certain situation. So Frank, the one and only Frank Ntilikina, 2 seasons ago, had 16 games of 10 minutes or more when Derrick Rose missed a month with COVID, and then other guys had some injuries here and there. I'm saying, say Derrick Rose does have another injury where he misses not 57 games, but misses 25 to 30 games. And it literally just takes one more player to potentially be injured. Then Cam's your backup.
Well,
in some
I know where John's
capacity.
going with this.
No, again, I'm going to go back to what I said before. If Derrick Rose is injured for 25 games, I think Deuce is seeing
does
time.
Okay.
That's my two. I don't know who the hell.
I think it really comes down to RJ and Fournier for the minutes that Cam would see.
And
Grimes
and Quickley. And actually, honestly, and Obi and Julius.
Yes. If he's willing to play Cam as, I guess, more of a big, you don't need to pigeonhole him as a 4. He's a wing. He's able to be more versatile, but it's really just the question of, it just takes two players who are injured. I guess,
disagree. I say if any one of RJ Fournier, Randle, Obi, Grimes, whom I forget quickly, misses time or is on the injured report for a night where they cannot report, I think Cam gets those minutes. And I would wager, I don't know what odds, like if you gave me anything, even odds, you could give me, what's the opposite of even when you go plus, right? You could give me like plus 300, maybe even more on will there be some type of injury on opening night if Cam is still on the roster. And I'd like some odds on that, Claudio Casino. What can I get odds on Cam being traded before opening night?
Then maybe an odd like that.
Okay.
Before opening night?
Before opening night.
Another drink. I'll bet you right now. Like he's on the roster.
No, I need a little bit of something.
Yeah, to be fair, he's got to have higher odds than that.
Yeah, I need a little incentive. But like to me, if you gave me like
drinks,
if you
I
gave
think
me
it should be plus 300, which would be 3 drinks to 1 drink.
three to 1 drink.
I want something like closer to plus 1,000 because again, it's already
10 drinks. All right, 10 drinks to 1. That's
I'll just invite you. We'll just talk at my bachelor party at that point. Jesus, John.
Here's what I'm saying. So Grimes, I'm getting into this is talk about tinfoil hat time.
Mm-hmm.
Grimes, Tibbs said Grimes was back at practice or doing light practice, not like involved in scrimmages, but doing light practice on Saturday. Unless I misinterpreted the tweet from, again, Zach of the Post. That's his new name. with Bourbon gone. Hold on. I want to make sure I get this right. Because he said Grimes was out again today. We're recording this on Sunday. So unless I missed something, like Grimes is still like something is up with Grimes in his foot or whatever. Yeah, at Knicks practice today, Tom Thibodeau said Quentin Grimes was out. Wouldn't say yet he won't play on Tuesday. Like if Cam gets in there and plays 20 or 25 minutes and looks really good, and then does that in the second preseason game and the third preseason game, are you telling me if there's a team out there who calls up the Knicks at the last minute and be like, sure, screw it, we'll give you the most heavily protected first in history of protected first? Are the Knicks hanging up the phone? I don't think they're hanging up the phone. I don't know if they're going to do the trade, but
Venmo bet. I'll send you $10. You send me 1.
Sure.
That's the deal. I think
that's the deal.
I think Cam Reddish will be on this roster for at least opening night, and then we'll see how the season goes.
You probably made yourself $1.
Awesome. I got $1. Okay. All right. Time to get away from some of the minutes conversations and talk about, I don't know. Have we ever had a conversation about Coach Tom Thibodeau and his job status on this show? Have we ever?
Not that I can recall.
Not this. So. Okay. Well, it's fine. Finally, time we have one here at Claudio Casino. How many games will Tom Thibodeau coach this season? You have 3 options where to put your hypothetical $100 chip. You can put it on 81.5 over under, 60.5, which is the All-Star break. They play 60 games before the All-Star break and then 22 afterwards, or 20.5 over under.
You know what they should do?
What?
Should fire him before game 82 and go find Herb Williams to coach the last game.
1 game. There you go. Johnny Bryant still can't get a coaching job with the Knicks, even though it's 1 game.
I have a feeling I'm going to have the same answer as Jeremy. I'll go 81.5.
Over?
Yeah.
Now, Are we counting any potential COVID?
Oh, come on.
I am asking for the sake of the casino's answer.
So this is a fair question. I'm saying where he will technically be as status employed by the New York Knicks as the head coach.
There you go.
Cool. I am also going with 81.5. I think he finishes out this season, and then if they have to handle business, they will do it in the offseason.
This will go to a couple of questions later to how. I mean, I'm kind of drinking the same Kool-Aid John is, but yeah, I also will take the over 81.5 because I think there will be reason to keep him in the eyes of the front office and an owner. Maybe not necessarily a portion of the fan base, but we'll see.
I'll say this. I don't know about 20.5. Like 20.5 is like when's the last
is a gift. That is
Fizdalian.
Yeah.
No, but Fizdale made it 22.
There is a gift that was a gift to Knicks Twitter that has maybe our friend of hashtag 53 wins. That's like, if he doesn't start off, at least it's this first 20 games is tough. And people are like, if he's 7-13, then he's fired. I don't think 7-13 gets him fired. I think the All-Star break, if they're through 60 games, if they're 23-37, then they fire him and give Johnny Bryant the last 22 games.
It all depends on their seeding, because for a lot of these teams, because of the plan, you only have to make it to 10. Mm-hmm. And if they're close and they feel like they don't need to shake anything up because they're within reach, then they're not going to do it.
But your Pelicans, Andrew.
Yes. My Pelicans.
2-13.
Yes.
And they rebounded. Like, again, we don't have to go through every scenario, but if Jalen Brunson twists an ankle the wrong way in game 1 and they get off to a 4-13 start, and then they're a 500 team for the next 3 months, he's not going anywhere.
Which is why I think the argument against 20.5, the under, is what you're saying right now. I'm saying if they're 23-37, and that's the 12 or 11 seed, even if it's the 10 because it's a weak Eastern Conference, like, my Pelicans had the built-in excuse that 0 games were played by Zion Williamson last year. If the Knicks are healthy, and at the All-Star break, they're 23-37. That's a disappointment. And as a result, there is merit to firing Tom Thibodeau and seeing if a new head coach for 22 games gets them to the 10 seed as a result. That's my only thought.
And I would just like to point out, I've been talking a lot in newsletters and on this podcast about how all that this man is going to be considered or judged by is wins and losses. And Ian Begley had a very nice report that came out yesterday in which he said, I took it as, in no uncertain terms, he needs to win. That is what Tom Thibodeau needs to do. And if he wins, he's going to keep his job. And if he doesn't win, he's not going to keep his job. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. It'd be crazy to have that as the unit of measurement for a head coach,
Yes, but too many people, the Knicks could go out there and win, a fair amount of more games than they lose, and it will be seen as not a positive step forward for the franchise based on how they come by those wins. And I think it is important to acknowledge that while that may be the barometer for some, it is not the barometer for the organization.
Jeremy,
I get it. It's just, it has to be wins at this point, because you have to take that step forward. Last year was not the way you wanted to go. Cool. Okay. You didn't pick 11th overall. I'm fine with that, assuming you can do something with the 3 firsts that you received. With this year, I feel as though what is happening is this mindset of like, all right, well, Tibbs hasn't gotten star talent. And because he hasn't gotten star talent, look at what he has to work with. Look at the teams that are better in the conference, in the league as a whole. And I understand that. And yet at the same time, I don't really get it. I'm a huge Brunson fan. It's a major upgrade that the Knicks made. They got better in the backup center position. They have younger players that are developing. This team should be on track to do better than they did last year. And I understand that there are concerns with the logjam and with minutes being played. And I share some of those trepidations. But at the same time, I look at what Tibbs has been given. They're good ingredients. He's just got to bake a good cake. But it's not like he's not getting quality ingredients. And I think that's where I get frustrated, is that, are there things I wish that the front office had done this offseason that they did not do? 100%. But I feel like the narrative around how it's being spoken with Tibbs is that he has not been given the tools to succeed. And I just push back on that.
Who's speaking that narrative?
Just generally.
Because I think who would push against that narrative?
Who?
Tom Thibodeau. And my assumption about that is, one, he's going out there every day and talking up the talent on this roster in a way that is not like, seems like he really does believe it. 2, I think if you gave him truth serum right now, he'd say, yeah, I have enough to win 45 games, if not more. And 3, you know what we never got in the aftermath of the Donovan Mitchell thing? We never got one story from Mark Berman or otherwise about how Tom Thibodeau was despondent about how they were on the verge of getting Donovan Mitchell and they didn't, you know, for whatever. I think he likes the team that he has. That's great. My guess.
Because he has to coach it, and that's on him to coach it up to a level that has him keeping his job.
Yeah, the discourse or the conversation around Tibbs, I don't think was ever he doesn't have enough tools. It's that the tools he's using he's using them incorrectly. Whether it be needing to play Obi with Randle, needing to play Quickley more, needing to start Grimes over Fournier. That I think has always been the conversation around
that
Tibbs.
Still goes hand in hand because a lot of it seems to be the push and pull of the front office, right? But the front office is giving him the pieces that he has and that he can use to be successful. It's on him to utilize them properly. Yep. And he did not do that last year. He did a very poor job of it. And hopefully he learned from it and he will put the younger players in the position to succeed because of the fact that the younger talent that is on the roster can help them win. It's not mutually exclusive.
Right.
They're good pieces. And it would help if they look better in the system and then are therefore better to the team or better as trade assets.
I think that's the conversation, though, is he utilizing them right? Not like, does he have an Immanuel Quickley? Does he have an Obi Toppin? Like, how you expect him to win? With
I just want to set the record straight before day one of the regular season begins that he has good pieces.
Yes, just 100%.
Right.
But there's 2 different conversations. Is he utilizing them in the way that will lead to the most wins? Or is he utilizing them in the way that a coach of a team in the position the Knicks are in the hierarchy of the NBA, should be deploying their young pieces?
But why do they have to be 2 separate conversations? Why can't it be that he's deploying the younger players and they are also being able to win those games that you're talking about?
I'm flipping what you just said on its head, which is I'm not talking. Yes, he should be able to deploy the young players in a way that is meaningful and win games with those young players. But I feel like there is the conversation of if they go out there and win 45 games and Obi averages 16 minutes and Quickley averages 20 minutes and Grimes averages 22 minutes, then that is not how. Again, a team in the position the Knicks are in should be deploying young players.
Sure. I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah. The only, and I'll get to the next question, but like the only not even necessarily pushback I would give is that the idea, like I agree with the sentiment that I think higher usage or higher minutes for the younger players would actually help them in more games, especially after watching what we did last season. It's just, as John's hinting with the deployment of said players, it's whether or not like the record should matter. We just got to see how many games these kids could win. Maybe it's 45 anyway, you know, which goes to why there's a sentiment that the Knicks should have traded a bunch of veterans. And as a result, they didn't. And here we are.
They did.
Not the ones that are still here. The ones that we had our top 5 things they still need to do. You said they needed to trade all these veterans.
And I stand by it, but I'm saying they have fewer. Right, they have fewer veterans now than they did last season, which is a step in the right direction.
And I think longer,
yes,
they went from 3 to veterans. They traded Kemba,
Alec Burks,
Noel. Taj Gibson's gone.
Oh, Taj. Okay, so it's 4 to 2. Gotcha.
Yeah, and there is
he's barely played, but I mean,
he's not. He's a veteran that's not on a rookie contract, which
he's young though.
Well, sure, but then are we calling Mitch a veteran?
I am. I'm saying the kids, I think, I mean, Julius Randle is 2 years older than Obi Toppin, and he's called, a veteran in the eyes of a lot.
But then Hartenstein's played what, like parts of 3 seasons?
I think this is a very young team. I'm agreeing with the sentiment that there aren't a lot of actual, like there's no Taj Gibsons. This isn't the Lakers of last year.
It's just Derrick Rose.
I'm saying that there's a movement from people with the internet that if you're not on a rookie contract and bottoming out and doing what the Thunder are doing, you're doing it wrong. Yes. And whereas you have a lot of pieces that are not like, again, the Leonardo DiCaprio example is perfect, that if you're older than 26, you got to go. Whereas I actually think this team has a good mix of young players that are on rookie contracts that can help your team get better as they play more minutes, increase their roles, and not too old players that are entering what could be the prime of their careers.
And the last thing I will say on this, we'll move on, is what was very valid, even as I fought against it for a while, what was extraordinarily valid about the critique of Thibodeau last season is they were losing. And not only were they losing in ways in which it was glaring about how, hey, the 7th time you tried Alec Burks out there in the 4th quarter and it does not go well, or the 8th time or the 12th time, whatever it is, maybe the 13th, you don't do that. What is more interesting to me is where the tenor of the conversation is this year, if they are winning at a level commensurate with what we think a good performance with this team should be, and the young players are playing meaningful minutes and roles, so something similar to 2 years ago, but more, right? Will there still be a corner of the internet that is highly critical of what is going on, which will lead to the conversation of like, where is the happy medium of, if you are a non-contender, like in terms of like playing your young players enough minutes and with big enough roles? Is it like you have to be I'm trying to think, like, you have to be the Rockets, where it's like those are the only guys getting meaningful usage and minutes, or is it enough that you're teaching and theoretically instilling winning habits and like all of those things, and like they're not playing as many minutes? That's going to be an interesting conversation to me in terms of maybe not being a part of it, but seeing where it goes. But one step at a time.
So next up, we're going to start to go a little rapid fire through these.
Sure.
How many players on the current active roster will be traded at some point during the season? The line I'm setting is 1.5. So at least 2. If you want to say 2, it's the over. If it's just 1, it's just Cam, then it's the under. Or somebody else that, like, it's Fournier and then Cam slots right in.
I'm going to go with over.
I'll go over. I like the line, though. I think it was correct to set it at 1.5.
Claudio Casino appreciates your feedback. I will take the under. I think they
really.
Yeah, we'll get to how high I am on the current crop of the team. How many Knicks will average at least 20 points per game this season? Julius Randle and RJ Barrett each averaged 20 points a game this year. There's an argument a third could exist if Jalen Brunson, now with high usage, comes to the team. There's an argument that it stays at 2 because now somebody's points get taken away. So the line I have set is 2.5.
You've boxed me in here because I made a bold prediction in my newsletter last week that no players would average 20 points per game. In truth, you would need to give me pretty good odds to actually. I mean, it's a bold prediction for a reason. I think the smart money is that it's 1, but I'm definitely going under since you put it at 2.5.
I'll put it at 1.5. The line just moved.
Great. I'm still going under
after the betting markets. Whoa, hold on. Now the line's at 0.5. Jeez, the way that listen, I don't know how to control the way the line moves here at Claudio Casino.
Come on.
The house always wins.
If the line's at 0.5, I'm going over.
Okay.
What would you have done if it was 1.5?
For the other 2, yeah.
If it were 2.5, I would have said under. If it were 1.5, I probably would have said over. I think it's going to be 2.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think do you have a prediction on who the 2 will be?
I'll say RJ and Brunson. I think Randle goes more to like 18, 19 points per game. Doesn't eclipse 20. But that's also me being optimistic in that he knows, all right, there is a legitimate point guard here. I don't have to do more than I've had to do in the past. Let me buy a little bit more into the role that I'm going to have, which is I get to have a higher usage, but I'll play a little bit more off ball than I have before. So that's baked into it.
There's no Nick I'm higher on this season than Jalen Brunson, but I think he's going to go under because I think he's going to destroy his previous per 36 for assists. It would be my guess. I think RJ is the guy that is probably going to get, but it's really 0.5.
Pick a line. One of the 3. If you're
Can I just
saying
go under? You originally said it 2.5.
under 2.5, fine. Under 1.5. Are you taking that?
I'm going under 1.5.
Now it's 0.5. You're sticking with your newsletter.
That was a bold prediction.
All right. How bold are you? Put your money where your
fine.
mouth
Fuck
is.
it. Yes, under. Nobody's going to average 20.
Your fake money where your mouth is. Okay. Next up, how many Knicks will make at least 100 3-pointers this season? Now, the line is 5.5. In each of the last 2 seasons under Tom Thibodeau, Knicks have had 5 players to make at least 100 3-pointers, with Alec Burks just getting it to 102 2 years ago. You still have the Fourniers and the Fournier, RJ, and Randle got it last year along with Quickley and Alec Burks. So if you think Quickley, the 4 that are still here will get it. You have Jalen Brunson added to the mix and maybe a Quentin Grimes added to the mix to potentially get it to 6. So over under, if you think the Knicks will be better offensively this year, especially from 3-point land, do you take the over or under on 5.5 Knicks to make 100 3-pointers this season?
So the good news is, if you are a person who is worried about Evan Fournier potentially being traded at some point this season, the odds are that he will blow past this number such that a all-star break trade or a trade deadline trade will not matter. Mm-hmm. I also think Julius Randle and RJ Barrett are going to blow past this number. I think Immanuel Quickley is going to blow past this number. I think
first 2 seasons. Yeah.
I think Quentin Grimes is going to blow past this number. That is 5 players. You have set the line at 5.5.
And I will add, Jalen Brunson's never done it. However, first couple seasons did it off the bench, was in about the 70s. I believe he hit 93 last season. In fact, I will look that up while you guys talk.
I think Brunson does it. And man, if I was confident that Derrick Rose was going to play in enough games, I might screw around and be like, and what was that? Can I move the line? Can I bet? Can I? What is
6.5? So you buy the point.
I buy the, but I get a better. I should get like better odds.
Yeah, you get better odds. I think that's how gambling works.
I think so, right?
Yes.
I mean, last season, when he was with the Knicks in 2021, in 35 games, he hit 37 threes. And then last year, he hit 37 threes in 26 games. On that pace, if he played 82 games, he would get over 100. Of course, he's not going to play 82 games. So I'll just go over on 5.5.
Jeremy?
I will also go over. I think it's those 5. And obviously the number 6 will be Mitchell Robinson. And no, part of me genuinely, this is bold. I admit it's bold, but part of me wonders, what if that 6th player is Obi Toppin? What if he gets more minutes and he takes more threes? Now, he hit 52 last season, so I'm not assuming he jumps from 52 to 100. I think that would be probably unrealistic, but I'm just thinking, is he getting to 80? 75? It seems like he's going to keep growing in that sense. So I do think the safer money is 5, but I just think there's going to be at least one player. Like a lot of Jalen Brunson, his shots are long mid-range. Was he able to work this summer on stretching out his shot a little bit more so he's behind the line? I'd like to think so. I think that's a really important element. I think especially a lot of it depends on RJ, because if RJ is not going to be, especially with the pull-up threes, as we've discussed, if he's not going to be doing a ton of that, then there might be some pressure on Brunson to, again, make those pull-up long 2s that he does really nicely, or does a really great job at, trying to work them as 3s instead. So I will go with the over.
I'm also taking the over.
I think it's the easiest. This is the easiest decision so far.
Okay.
And I'm looking up a stat that I'm going to get. I don't have time to look up right now, but just keep going and I'll get back to it.
Jalen Brunson at 94 threes last year, by the way, and now going to a team where he will have much more usage and volume. Next up, how many top 3 to 5, because obviously MVP is, you get the 5, finishes in awards voting will the Knicks have this season? I'm setting it at 1.5.
Wait. how many
MVP?
How many top 5
Six-man.
finishes in all? So MVP,
All of
Coach
the
of the Year,
awards.
all of the awards. How many Knicks will finish in the top 5 in the weak year season? You had 3 finish in the top 5
in the top 5?
Well, top 3 for the. So I said, oh, you know what? Just make it top 5 because then you have that actually makes it easier.
Well, Julius.
I'm saying because if I don't think it's going to matter because MVP is top 5, right? That's what gets released. Is considered like they vote on 5, right? So
The final 3 that come out for MVP.
no, it's 5 that come out. It's 3 for literally every other award, and then for MVP, it's 5 because you vote on 5. You submit 3 for every other award.
But then they narrowed down 5 and 4 to get to the top 3 for the MVP, right? Isn't that how they've been doing?
They always release the top 5. I'm saying when people are voting, they will put on their ballot these like 3 names for every other award except MVP. And then for MVP, they put 5. So how many Knicks will be finish in the top 3 in voting for every award except MVP? And then add in MVP and then say it's top 5. It's a very confusing way of saying this. How many Knicks will finish in?
You've 1.5. That's
1.5. Because it was Randle, Derrick Rose, Tom Thibodeau for 2 years ago. Nobody last year. So if you think the Knicks will improve, I'll mention that both RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson are in the top 5 for most improved player odds right now. And then Immanuel Quickley is plus 3,300 for 6th man of the year. Those are the 2 best I saw, unless you think Randle can win most improved player again.
I'll go over. I don't know what it's going to be exactly, but I feel good enough about enough different people on this team that I will go over.
Jeremy?
I'll go under with Quickley being the guy named to it.
You don't think Brunson, the most improved player, is the way?
Not for him. I think, he did a really nice job in Dallas. And I think I'm not sure if they will see that as a carryover or if they'll see that as him going to another gear. That's my concern. I also think that someone like LaMelo Ball, who will have a ridiculous usage rate in Charlotte, has the potential to go from where he was, which was really good last year, to winning. I know this is just top 3, top 5 finish, but I think Brunson will be looked at as really good. I don't know if he will be looked at as most improved player, top 3 to 5 good, but might throw $10 on there. Why not?
All right. We differ, but I respect the reasoning.
Can I also just say, I just looked it up. There's not a single team in the league last year that had 6 players who spent their entire year with the team finish over 100 3-pointers.
Oh, so nobody did. So the Knicks
nobody did last
something
year.
that nobody in the league did.
Nobody did, and I'm just now looking at the year before that, and Utah is the only team that had at least 6, and they had 7.
One of the best offensive ratings ever. Yes.
And one of the best offensive ratings ever. Yeah.
I would like to revise my previous answer.
I'm sticking.
I'm going to go with under.
With the under. Okay.
I'm sticking with the over.
All right.
Go big or go home.
There you go. I dig it.
Robinson once again.
I'm taking the over on award finishing, by the way. I think Immanuel Quickley is going to finish top 3 and 6th man. I think Jalen Brunson is going to win most improved player.
Whoa.
But we'll see. How many teams will finish ahead of the Knicks this season? I have the line at 8.5. I have the Knicks in the Eastern Conference. Let me revise that line. How many teams in the Eastern Conference will finish in the playoff rankings ahead of the Knicks? I have 8.5 as the line.
Good line.
Yeah.
It's the proper line.
If you had said 9.5,
Easy over for me.
I would have said over. But 8.5, that's trickier.
You're basically asking. It's a 2-part question.
They finished better than 9th. It's really the first part of it.
I was gonna expand upon it a little bit and say you're basically asking: is there going to be a perceived? Because right now there is something of a lock for the top 8. Like, who would you say is the worst of the top 8? Vegas would say it's either Toronto or Atlanta, both of whom have over-unders of 45.5. So, and the Knicks, I believe, currently have the 10th best over under in Vegas, with the Chicago Bulls still having a better over under of 42.5. I'm not very high on the Bulls, and I have a feeling that neither of you two are either. But like Atlanta, Toronto, Cleveland, like it's a different story. You want to throw Brooklyn into like the list of uncertainties, but we'll see. Goodness.
You want me to go while you think about it?
I'll go over.
Over. Okay.
Go over.
At least the AC for John Macri. Jeremy.
Wait, you're saying... I'm sorry, you're saying...
No, I'm so sorry.
Teams.
I'm saying that they will finish better than that.
So under.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
I am also taking the under.
Okay.
Wow.
Let's do it. Yeah. I mean, again, here's the thing. I think that Atlanta and
Cleveland,
thank you, took significant steps forward this year. I also believe that when you look at all of these teams that took a step forward, how is it that also none of them maybe just take a step back as well? Or like if they're making a big move, it doesn't automatically propel them. They could also just regress a little bit more, but that big move kind of stabilizes them. So they fall somewhere that they're a really good team, but they're not just automatically better. And that's kind of how I see those teams. I think Toronto is going to be a really fascinating dynamic because there are a couple of guys that are up for new contracts very soon in Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. And I think that will certainly help them. But from Toronto's vantage point, it's also going to be incredibly curious in my mind how they prioritize certain players. Like, do they want to keep VanVleet long term? I would imagine so. But then also, if they're deploying their 5 players of VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes, there's not a natural 5 there. So are they going to find a 5? If they do, then one of those players is on the outs, most likely. Or if they're not, they're coming off the bench, which makes them a deeper team. But
how happy is that player going to be?
Exactly. And it's probably Anunoby, and he's probably not going to be that happy. And then the following year, he's entering and he's expiring. Because
you think they would bench Anunoby?
I don't think they're going to bench Scotty Barnes, and I think they really value
Scotty Barnes.
They really value. They're not going to bench Siakam, and
they're not going to bench
Jr. in that kind of like off-ball role. And they need a natural point guard, which they wouldn't have. So I think Anunoby's the odd man out in that situation. But I digress. It's still just looking at all these teams. It just takes the Knicks being good enough, and one, maybe 2 of them just to slip a little bit down. So if the Knicks can have a down year after a really good season, I don't see why we can't say the same thing about a couple of these other teams. And that's where I'm at.
Here's my worry. My biggest worry is that the Knicks have a brutal schedule to start. And while I believe in this team and I believe in the bones of this roster and much, while others may not, I still believe in Tom Thibodeau's ability to coach them through ups and downs. And I believe in Jalen Brunson as a leader on the team. I think his impact is going to be monumental. Like, all of those things make me think if they can survive the early hard part of the schedule, that better things will be in store, especially as the team continues to learn how to play with each other. And that will be a test of the organizational culture. And I'm not sure how strong that culture is right now, coming off of last season and coming off of an off season in which, they tried to do a thing and that thing did not happen. And how many players, how many players are going to be as focused as they need to be at all times to make it through a rough patch? Especially, again, like a guy like Immanuel Quickley is a guy that you think he's going to be in the 6-man voting. I think he's going to be in the 6-man voting, but he knows his contract negotiations are coming up in 6 months or whatever, 7 months, whatever they are. Tibbs always talks about sacrifice. How willing are the players going to be to continue to make sacrifices if they start off, as we've been speculating, like whatever, 7-13 or 8-12, if it starts off rough. That to me is what so much of these conversations are going to come down to.
I agree with all of the hesitation that you have there and the worst case scenario. I'm taking the over and the under. I think there will be less than 8.5 teams that finish better than the Knicks this year. You could have given me a different number that was less, and I also would have taken the under. I have gone to a place of optimism that I'm very high on the actual basketball product that we might see this season, especially knocking all the wood with some health kicked in. I just go back to how I felt the day of free agency before the summer of Donovan Mitchell, before all these quotes that came out from the last week and a half that lit the Twitter sphere on fire. Like I like Hartenstein as far as an option that is better than what Nerlens Noel was able to give. Granted, Nerlens Noel was able to give better rim protection. I think the ability to pass the ball to a center and he can shoot a 3-pointer will be God's gift to this second unit that'll make it even better. And I'm maybe this is Benji's threads and going through them and editing some of them for videos later that has got me drinking that Kool-Aid. Very high on the best Knicks point guards in Stephon Marbury and potentially future friend of the pod, Jeremy Lin. Having said all of that, there is one final bet that you guys need to place. How many games will the Knicks win this season? Now, FanDuel, one of my rivals, is at 38.5. DraftKings, another one of my rivals, is at 38.5. I am setting the Claudio Casino line at 41.5 because, and those who are patrons know this, or at least say Ewing or Monroe tier patrons know this, because we had our town hall this week and I expressed this kind of optimism to those that don't have the same optimism. And they also wanted to take me up on some friendly wagers. And I have like 3 handshake deals where we haven't decided what the consequences would be yet, with at least 42 wins. And I'm now offering it to you guys. 41.5 if you want to take it.
Over.
I'm also obviously taking the over.
Fortune
Jeremy.
favors the brave. Over. There we go.
3 overs, baby. Here we go. Giddy
Look
up.
at us.
Can you imagine if they like won on opening night against Memphis?
Hey, you want to know another prediction, John?
What?
They're going to win on opening night.
I don't think it's nuts.
Who do they play that Friday?
The first home game is against
Pistons.
Detroit.
They're going to start 2-0. Gotcha.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
It's going to be annoying when they're 5-15 and Kibbs gets fired out the gate.
So sad.
And it'll be under 20.5.
Under 20. You should have taken it. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for participating or coming to Claudio's Casino, ladies and gentlemen.
It was a good time. I like that I could smoke at the tables.
Yes.
All right. Is it time for America's favorite podcast sideshow game that we do every week?
Yes. It is time to bring back a segment that we haven't done since April. It's time.
This is
to make
our
some predictions. Go ahead.
Our preseason, though, right? We're not.
Yeah, it's preseason. No,
right.
These don't count. This is your preseason. You're going to predict the first 4 games. So, John, read them out. What do we got?
Knicks.
I should also, just a programming note, John's going on vacation, then Jeremy's going on vacation before the season starts.
Yes.
So that's why we're predicting all 4 games before the season, right now. And because we will not be together to do this segment for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Before you read out the games, Andrew, could you remind the folks at home who maybe don't know from last year what happened last year?
Last season, I believe. So who was up by a lot?
Jeremy was up by a lot.
Jeremy was up by a lot.
I made a stirring comeback.
Very much.
John tied the season with 1 week to go. I think they were both 11-11 going into the final week. John took 1-2. Jeremy took 2-1, and Obi Toppin and his career high. Both of them helped Jeremy.
That was amazing. Came down to the last game.
Came down to the last game. Yeah,
really came down to the last game, and Jeremy won the season series over John. 12.
Why didn't I take 2-1?
because they're playing Toronto at the. They played. So the 3 games they played were Brooklyn, Washington, and Toronto.
I think, John, in your mind, there was also the thought of if Toronto wanted to win or lose the game, depending on a matchup for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the idea that they would want to win that game might have helped them more.
4 seed was in play for them.
Yeah.
Going into that week.
No, bad job by me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The Knicks in the preseason play, the Pistons at home, the Pacers at home, the Pacers on the road, and the Wizards at home.
So, Jeremy, since you won.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You get to go first.
Thank you. I look forward to going first when the actual season starts as well, because
we'll see how preseason. No, I'm kidding. You also get to choose first.
Should we remind the viewers at home that the Knicks were undefeated in the preseason last year?
That they were.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a nice 3-1. You know, they got 3 games at home. They did go 4-0 last year, although part of me hopes they go under 500 for preseason, because I feel like do the reverse. If they did really well last year in preseason, then did poorly in the regular season, maybe doing poorly in preseason might help them do really well in the regular season. But I will go with 3-1. Am I picking the individual games or just?
Well, we've never done that. Yeah.
Great. 3-1.
John.
That was the correct pick. Oh man, you're leaving me in a tough spot. I forgot how painful this was. But am I really going to pick 4-0 for the second year in a row?
Big or go home.
Guys are playing for jobs. And Tibbs is going to play his guys. I'll go fine. I'll go 4-0. Damn it. I hate that you've already done this to me.
Buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a long season.
I hope a fun season at least. Jeez.
Yeah, it will. What are you?
I just said a fun season.
It will be fun
season. Like my Jets, I wore green today. They're 2-2.
Yes, a stirring comeback against the Steelers. Good job by them. And the Giants. Right. How about the 3-1 Giants?
5 wins between our teams. Now football's a sport I watch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Obviously, baseball was a sport you watched, but is now not a sport.
I don't know what you're talking. I haven't watched baseball in like decades, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I've watched it like as an adult.
Yeah. You know? Or even briefly tonight.
I know what you're talking about.
That's a good point.
That was fun. Hey, your team will still be playing baseball when we talk, or when
what
this
are
time
you
next week.
Oh, Jeremy watch Jeremy's
my team
talking about Jeremy's team.
My team.
Yes.
Fine.
I don't know what you're talking about. I baseball guys. There's so many other important things in the world and sports anyway, like world hunger and world peace and world wide webs,
world domination by Pinky in the Brain.
Yeah. World domination, or at least domination down in Atlanta this weekend. Anyway, we have some quick show announcements.
Yes.
Obviously, you guys saw the announcement that we made this earlier today, or I guess when you're listening to this early yesterday. Welcome to Linsanity Week. Jeremy Lin, right before his debut, well, not debut documentary, because there's been documentaries, but before the documentary from HBO on his life and his journey to that Friday night at Madison Square Garden against the Lakers and the legacy of Linsanity and what it means today, he will be stopping by the Knicks Film School podcast, an interview that we recorded last month with John, sitting down with him. That will take place this Friday, so stay tuned for that. We've got a couple of other guests that are associated with the documentary that'll be making trips to the pod over the next week as well. Benji's got a thread coming of that Friday night against the Lakers, so be on the lookout for that. Then some just plugs for the Patreon for those that are interested. We are launching a Discord. Now, some of you might not know what a Discord is. It is like a large group chat with channels. I hope I explained that correctly. For those that know what Discord is, everybody in the mellow tier and up will have access to it starting tomorrow. So if you'd like to join the KFS Discord, sign up for Patreon. The link is in the description of this episode as well, both on the podcast feed and on YouTube. And then our playback watch parties, where we'll watch a game live with you. We haven't discussed which preseason game or if we're doing a preseason game yet. I will just say that we will be bringing those back. So if you want to watch along with us once a week, then also sign up for Patreon, the mellow tier and up. And those are some perks to sign up for extra content from the KFS pod. We're also, like John and I just did, the East and West over-unders for this season. So if you want like a free podcast episode a week, that's an option as well.
Very, very responsibly did those over-unders as we ended up with 15 overs and 15 unders.
Yes. Spoiler alert.
That was good. This was great. Good stuff from your casino, Mr. Claudio. Jeremy Cohen, I hope you, as always, lose your preseason predictions.
Feelings mutual, John. Thank you.
It's the least I could do. And everybody out there, thanks for checking out another episode. I hope you're excited for Jeremy and Lynn week. It's going to be a fun one. Very, very, very excited for everybody to hear the interview that I did with Jeremy. I would like to think that it is going to be some stuff that you haven't heard from him before. And I know it's some stuff that comes out that is not on the doc because I've seen the doc, and doc is excellent, but we got into some other stuff as well. So check that interview out, drop it on Friday. I think that's it. Let's play some basketball. Here we go. Giddy up. Peace up.
Mets are down 4-3.
I know. I'm watching.
Yeah, I have it on.